Today's guest, Caralanay Cameron, is the founder of PartnerWork Innovations, a studio that helps startups and small businesses quickly turn bold ideas into working AI powered products. With a background spanning innovation consulting, emerging tech, and teaching prompt engineering, she's uniquely positioned to demystify how small teams can go from scrappy prototypes to production ready tools using AI. Caralanay, welcome to Just Curious.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Let's start at the beginning. Who is Caralanay Cameron and what is PartnerWork Innovations?
So, I am a builder, learner, and teacher. I am someone who loves to understand the inner workings of making an idea a reality, hence where PartnerWork Innovations came from. So, my work at PartnerWork Innovations is working with startups and SMBs to help them implement AI solutions and also build technology products with AI. And so I use my experience and background in product and emerging technology and human centered design to really help people use AI in the product development process, but then also use AI to enhance their businesses and operations and work more efficiently. So it's sort of like a combination of all the things that I love doing and love helping people to make their ideas a reality.
Does your background in startups and innovation consulting lead you into AI product work?
Yeah. So actually, all of that, those are true, but I'll even go a step back when I started in undergrad with going into, I thought I wanted to do technical theater. I thought I wanted to do the behind the scenes work of putting on concerts and festivals and like all the things you see. So I wasn't concerned about being like on stage or anything. I was more concerned about like, how does this machine run? Like, what's going on in the background? What's the lighting person doing, the audio person doing, like how does this all work? And so I think that's where my interest and passion in working behind the scenes and working in the inner workings of something to make the idea or the play or the concert come to life. And so with that kind of passion in the background that I also have a background in event management, I kind of took all of those skills and that passion and continued to push through my career and try things that allowed me to do that. And so when I got to IDEO and I'm able to look into the human centered design process, understand like some of the problems companies are having. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is where I want to be. I want to be in the process of building products, designing products, and then also jumping into early stage startups. That's where you're taking it from ground zero to one or trying to build something and get traction and get product market fit. And so when I found that my skill set and my passion lined up a lot with the tech side and with product, when I found product management, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm in. I'm sold." And then I had some experience also in startups with emerging technology. So I worked at a blockchain technology startup here in Chicago and being exposed to emerging technologies and learning about how that works. And even at IDEO with the data science practice, it's always been of interest to me to understand what's new and up and comings and how that impacts the work that I do. So if you bring all of that together, that is how I got into this world of product and then now AI and working in my own business to help people with those things.
You work across different sectors from ed tech to creative agencies. What do your clients tend to have in common when they come to you?
Yeah, it tends to be someone who is very curious about implementing these kinds of technologies, or they have ideas that have been brewing, but they just don't know like where to get started, or they may have tried before and they're like, it didn't quite work out. And so they need some partnership and support in bringing the idea to life. And so sometimes it's the idea of like, hey, like I have all this knowledge. I want to be able to scale this knowledge. How do I best do that? Now that AI is here, there's a bunch of different ways, including like agents, assistants, chatbots that you can actually, take what's in your brain, pick a frontier model and be able to scale your knowledge to your customers, to whoever it is your audience is. And so it's the scaling of knowledge thing. It's also increasing productivity with like AI product development and increasing and accelerating that product development life cycle. So people are looking for scale, for speed, and also better quality too, because using AI as seeing it as a partner and working with it to accomplish your goals. People are seeing, and a lot of my clients are wanting to experience that quality and that level of partnership with AI.
You mentioned AI and product development. Can you unpack what that kind of looks like in practice?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, and one of the big things, and people are using the word left and right, vibe coding, right? So vibe coding, also known as it could be AI coding assistants or AI powered coding agents and things of that nature. Vibe coding is just literally being able to speak or to type what you want to build, what you want to see, and then the agent actually does it for you. So you don't have to know code, it generates the code for you. You don't have to know design, it generates the design for you. And so, what that can look like for someone who may not be in product is just having an idea and wanting to have fun and explore and tinker with the idea of being able to build apps. But for inside product teams and for product development firms or agencies, this is a tool now that is incredibly helpful at accelerating the pace of product development. So, me as a PM on a team with an engineer, a designer, I can go and create a functioning prototype in less than a day, get it to engineering or get some eyes on it, get feedback on it, like tweak it, do some iterations, rewind it, revisit it, and then I can give it to engineering with code, with everything in it and say, here you go. Like this is what we want to build. We can collaborate. And then before you know it, at the end of the week, we can have a fully functioning something in production for customers to use. So before we were using, and still very relevant and still can be used, like going through Figma designs and wiring up prototypes there. Whereas now you can build literally a functioning prototype. And with the platform I like to use, which is Replit, it's a full stack development tool where it's giving me front end and back end. So it looks like being able to find a problem, find a user or an audience, being able to then quickly prototype and build a product, test it, and then get it into engineering's hands to actually put it into production. And in some cases, that prototype turns into the fully in production product. And we can do that now quicker than we ever have been before.
We're going to share an example of what that looks like, but maybe a couple contextual questions before we jump into a case study. You talked about scaling knowledge and efficiency. How have you seen AI shift the way small businesses approach both scaling knowledge and improving efficiency?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say It's it's one and two things. So one, it's thinking about again going back to the problems they're trying to solve and the pain points. So it's one of those things where it's their time is valuable. It's just one person. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two or three people, and they need to be able to do more, but with less, or like not being able to hire on more people. So it's like, how can we utilize the technology in order to scale some of our processes and in order to, save time, but then also use our time wisely. So I find that a lot of people are wanting to use the AI to free them up for space, not always necessarily to do more work, but also to have a personal life. Quite frankly, I know from one example, I was talking to someone that their sales team implemented an AI solution that allowed them to do a lot of like lead capture and qualifying that would have taken them a whole weekend to do, but now takes 2 hours to do, and now they can go play baseball with their kid on Saturday or Friday. So it's one of those things where they're looking for AI to help them offload those things that they don't want to do so they can make more time for the things they want to do. And then also it's increasing with the acceleration in being able to, in the product development case, being able to get to a solution faster. It's also enabling now teams to learn quickly and to be able to pivot and to see those outcomes in customer feedback and getting closer to product market fit if they're an early stage startup, or getting closer to figuring out what features are going to make sense for users and for their business.
Yeah. Presumably, you work with a lot of clients who are starting their AI journeys. Are there any common risks or misconceptions that you see amongst those early clients?
Yeah. So I think too with the advancement and how quickly things have evolved with AI and even with so going back to vibe coding, like that's a fairly new term and something that really took off at the beginning of this year and has since evolved. But I think across the board, even with like, frontier models coming out a couple years before and with all the tooling now around like being able to help build AI agents and things of that nature, people are still concerned with security and privacy. I do see that come up a lot in conversation of asking questions about, whether tools are safe or how do we prevent and how do we protect data privacy and for products that are actually going to be, consumer facing, what does that look like for it all falls under, I guess, like responsible AI. And so that
Yeah.
really has been a big topic of concern or something that they are definitely aware of, especially when dealing with sensitive data. I'll also say just managing the hype of AI and managing the influx of information about AI. There's a lot again with it being like something new every day come to me with like, "Oh, did you see this article or did you see this? Did you like?" And some of it can get to be a bit overwhelming and like it's like, "Oh, well, all of these tools are like are I don't know, they're which one do I use?" Like there's some overwhelm around like which tools do we use? What's better? And so I do spend time like walking through like how to decide what to use, where you should be like putting energy in learning and how to like kind of like tailor or manage the influx of information around AI.
Yeah. Is there a process or a framework that you use to help people decide what to use? Like, what can that look like? If someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, should I use this or should I use that?" What do you do with them?
Yeah, so I don't have a necessary like a rubric or metrics in that sense, but I do take more of a personalized approach where it's when I'm meeting with someone and again, starting from the problem, like what things are pain points or what's the issue here, and going from there and understanding the needs and like given okay what kind of data are we working with, what state of the company is it, where how complex does this need to be, that's how I'm able to better than kind of like pick and choose like these tools will be a better option or maybe this other tool and then present it to the client and be able to say like hey like these are the better tools. Now there are some tools that I'm more proficient in, so of course I'm going to assess and see like okay this feels like a good fit given my expertise in Replit or Chip.ai. But I do take more of like a personalized approach to kind of understanding their unique situation or problem and then what's out there and what I have experience with playing around with as well.
How does your experience teaching prompt engineering influence your client work and vice versa?
Yeah, so this is a new avenue for me. So this will be the first time I'm teaching this semester. And so my hope is that, I'm a lifelong learner. I think that there's always something to learn. I don't use that as a thing to not do because I believe there has to be learning and action and it needs to be applied. But I really hope that it fine tunes like how I'm able to then communicate AI in the use cases and get challenged a bit on how people are impacted by AI. So being in the classroom and being able to teach is going to be one of those things where I'm hoping to learn from students and just as much as they want to learn from me and taking those thoughts and those questions and bringing it back to clients as well. And also what I'm learning in the classroom, I can bring to clients. So I'm hoping it's a wheel of just like constant learning and applying and digging deeper into some of the questions that people have and being able to kind of like surface trends and patterns too, right? Because I think that's going to be super interesting just to see over time. What the sentiment is and the questions that are being asked. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'd love to share an example of how you work. You shared with me a case study with an early stage startup. What problem did they come to you with? Let's start at the top.
Yeah. All right. So with the early stage startup, been going for about a year or so, and there are separate products happening all at the same time. So there was one product that was built to assess somebody's financial statements, not statements, but somebody's financial situation for a specific industry. And then there was a product that was able to, for that person in that same industry, be able to get their client information prior to seeing them so that they could be well prepared for the appointment before the client got there. And there was that separate tool. And then there was an idea of another tool that would be more of like a chat assistant. And so all of these things were living separately in silos. Nothing was on like a cohesive platform. The team, super small, no designer on the team. There's an engineer, but then there was a time where there wasn't an engineer. So it was just the founder who very, let's say, can understand technical jargon and understand like what you're saying, but not necessarily a technical person. And so the gap was that they needed to build like a more cohesive product all on one platform, but not have these separate tools, right? So they didn't have the engineering and design help to do it, but they needed to bring it all together. Me coming in and being like, okay, there's all these separate tools. I know from my experience with these tools like Replit and Cursor and vibe coding that I can whip this up and like get all of these things to live in one place and like rebuild what that looks like. And so what I did was go in, we had a PRD and like we had what we wanted. We had to work through and craft together what would that cohesive 2.0 product look like with all of these separate products included. And so we did that. We did that groundwork and made sure it still made sense in solving a problem. And then I took it to Replit, which is the vibe coding tool, and I turned it into prompts. I turned it into prompts of like, hey, this is what we want to build. This is what needs to happen in terms of the technical stack. This is the features that need to be included. Go to town. Gave it to Replit. It whipped up something for me in less than 2 hours. I was able to do some iterations on things that weren't quite right because I also want people to understand with some of these vibe coding tools, you're not going to get a perfect product right off the bat. You're going to have to do some iteration and go through and work through some of the things that may have missed. But we got to a point where we now have a functioning prototype ready for production. And so by that time, there was an engineer on the team that I was able to give him the code, the visual design, all the work that had been done in a day or two, give it to him to put into production. And then at the end of that week, we had something in development, staging, and going into production that we could use for customers. And so that was the
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Replit. Why'd you choose Replit and its AI agent for this project, and how did that choice like speed things up?
yeah, for sure. There are a ton of tools out there. Like I'll just say, there's Cursor, there's Bolt, there's Lovable, and they're all great for certain things. I've used most of those tools, but why I land on Replit is because it does give you that full stack development capability. So some of the tools are really great at front end and will give you great design, will still generate code, still have an integration with a back end like Super or Google, but it's not going to do it all together all as one. Whereas Replit, it can do front end and it can also implement a back end database in Postgres. So it's one of those things where it covers a wide range of functionality and also has some of the security measures that I know a lot of people are looking for. And so when I use Replit, it's also one of those things where they're constantly coming out with updates and news on like how they're improving the product. And Agent 3, which is the latest version of Replit, allows it's even more autonomous than it used to be. So it debugs and tests its own work when you ask without you asking it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
This is where we are. This is where, because 6 months ago, it wasn't doing that to that extent of autonomous work. But now I give it a prompt. I tell it what I want to build. And instead of it just being like, here you go, it's saying like, hey, wait a minute. Like I noticed an error in my own work. Let me check this. Hey, this is working properly. Let's test this again. And then it gives me a fully functioning product. So I say all that to say is I love Replit because of the full stack nature of it. And then also because of how advanced the agent is and at how advanced they are at thinking about what are those things that people building are going to need. So it's one of those things where I feel for the work that I do with clients are more longer term, might have more complex projects. Replit is the best fit for it.
Yeah. You started with some fragmented no code experiments. You ended up with a full stack solution, I guess over a week. Is that an MVP? And like, where do you go from there? Obviously getting an MVP built in a week is, relative to 2 years ago, a massive
Mhm.
acceleration. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about kind of like, so it was about a week. And then also like, where do things go from here?
Yeah. So with that, so it can go a couple of ways. So with that case, like I said, we had an engineer then that came in and that made it possible for us to take that code, take the visual design and everything that Replit had built and put it into an existing GitHub repository database, like all of that. So he was able to implement that into something that was production ready on that front. So it took the elements that we wanted from the one product and the other product. We made a cohesive product, and then he was able to take that and put it into production, his own code into what we already had. Because remember, the one product that they already built was built in like a code base. The other one was built with a no code solution, no code, low code solution. So they were two separate systems, two separate products, all of that. And so we put it under one roof, and Replit helped us to do that. Now, the other way that I've seen it go too is that this ends up being what is produced on Replit actually becomes the live customer facing through Replit. And so that is another avenue and path people do take with vibe coding and being able to use the AI assistant tools is making it so that it is the actual product that they're using to test, to validate, and to get that information. So it can go either way. Like it just depends on the client, the team, and the needs. But I'll also say that engineers are using these AI code assisting tools to debug their work and to do testing within existing work already. It once again just depends on the team, the client, and the need.
You said looking back, you might push a bit further on prompt experimentation when it comes to visual design. Tell me a little bit about that sort of perspective and maybe what you would have done
Yeah.
differently if you did it again.
Yeah. So I will say this is a constant, like, we're early on still in AI, and I would say in the subset of like vibe coding and understanding what that looks like. Replit is great at all the things that I mentioned, but it's not the best always at design and visual design. You can get there to a really good design, but it's going to take some patience and some iteration. And so what I've learned is to start over the process, like start early with more intention around design and bring in whether it be screenshots or examples or more direction in the prompt around what you want it to look like upfront. Because there have been times where I've just went into functionality and did not do design up front. And it gave me what it wanted to for design. But then in the middle of development, when I try to switch gears, it gets wonky and it doesn't do what I want it to do. Versus if I'm upfront, this is the exact screenshots, these are exact specifications, and it does it right off the back. So I would say on reflection that taking into consideration, giving it as much as you can up front. And this is going back to also being a product manager or building a product. There are PRDs, right? Product requirement documents, where it lays out everything about the product, the business case, the specifications, the features, why this product exists. That's basically what you use to translate into a prompt to give to Replit. So prompting in this way, like how I think about it, is product management, is product part of the product delivery process. So always remembering that even though AI is capable of doing these things for me, again, going back to the detail of being able to say, you know what, I need to add more around design so that it gets closer to what I want right off the bat.
Yeah. Let's talk about that PRD like construction process.
Hmm.
2 years ago, you just write it yourself.
Yeah.
Do you use and would you recommend people use ChatGPT or Claude to produce the PRD and like any sort of recommendations for how to go from, an idea for a product to a PRD that can then be dropped into Replit or your tool of choice?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, yes, ChatGPT or Claude. I like using Claude because it's a little better at understanding technical builds and being able to be a little bit more detail oriented around it. But either one is fine for building in a PRD. And people can tell it like, "Hey, I have this idea for an app for a task management app. Can you write a PRD for me?" And it will do it. And one of the things that I think is great is that for non-technical people, you can look and see like it's in plain English, like what you are requiring the product to do and not in code or like some languages they don't understand. And then I would encourage people, if you see something that you don't understand, like Google it. Ask ChatGPT, what do you mean by JavaScript? Or what do you mean by um, the hamburger menu? It's a type of visual design because that language, I also find that if you've been in tech or you have been close to engineering or building products, you might know some of this jargon so you can kind of type in what you want on the navigation, on the drop down and things like that. But if you aren't close to it and you don't have that language or the vocabulary, sometimes it can be challenging to even write the prompt or the code, or not the code, the prompt or the PRD. So I think starting in ChatGPT or Claude is a great way to go. Ask it to give you a PR, copy it, paste it, put it in Replit or put it in Lovable, whatever platform you're using. Tell it to build it and see what happens. Like a lot of this is taking the idea, giving it, and it's the same prompt techniques that follow in, if you're just using chat to ask like a question about a paper or a question about your work. The better the input, the better your output. So using the prompts as a way of getting really descriptive and detailed and then letting the platform do its thing is what I would recommend, and to just start building and trying. We can spend a lot of time noodling on an idea or thinking through something, but until you actually get in there and start building, that's when you start to learn. And that's when you start to really grasp hold of like how you should work with the AI.
Yeah. You help teams go from ideas to product. What typically holds small teams back from getting past that initial idea phase, even with access to powerful tools like ChatGPT or Replit?
Yeah, I find that one or two things. Sometimes it is the fact that it's not ready yet. It's like oh, this needs more. They always feel like there needs to be more of something before launching it. So I forget what the saying is, but like it's good enough is not good enough for them. So sometimes they say, you should build till it's good enough where it does the thing. It may not be the nicest looking thing, or it may not be exactly what you envision, but if the functionality is there and you can learn from it and validate, like you should launch it. And I think some people get stuck in that, like, well, it has to be perfect. It has to have all of these features. It has to do all of this. When in reality, and that's a whole nother path to go down, is really understanding how to build an MVP and a minimum valuable product. Like what are the core features that need to be tested and need to be in this product for us to validate whether there's a there where we're getting the product market fit. So I think that it is just getting started and not overthinking it or thinking too broadly, like really being able to narrow in on what it is, what problem you're solving and how you want to solve it. And then I think the other thing is also overwhelm. Like there's a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of things like coming at us around AI. And so I think that some people don't know where to start. They just get paralyzed by the overstimulation of information and they just don't get started on it. So I think it's a combination of that from my experience. And then also also not taking for granted. So again, because we're so close to tech or because we know of these things, there are still people who don't use ChatGPT or don't even know what the word vibe coding means. And so I think there's more education that needs to be done and awareness around some of these tools and how to best use them, that we're just getting started and it's so new. So I think there's sometimes a lack of awareness around like what these tools can actually do
You
and
mentioned
the use cases.
you mentioned people getting overwhelmed. Um, how do you help them avoid getting overwhelmed? Is it focusing in on a kind of core problem to solve, and then kind of working through the process you described earlier? Or what are the sort of techniques to avoid getting overwhelmed by kind of the noise and the myriad of choices that present themselves?
Yeah. I would say getting more practical. So, yes, grounding in the problem and understanding the use cases and how that impacts you or the person, whoever is building or wanting the AI. And then also making sure that somehow you're figuring out how to track ROI and like measuring like, well, what is the I mean, it comes back down to the like scientific process or experimentation of being like, okay, this is a hypothesis we have that it will do this. Did it actually do it? One of the things that's really big right now in the product world is evaluations. So even after, prompting, you get an answer, you get a response, is that the response good? Is that response a good response or a great response? And being able to create evaluation metrics and evaluation criteria that help you understand whether this is good, this is great, or if it meets the standard. So I think that that's something to look out for and something that is going to help be able to better make decisions and be able to kind of get through the noise of like this is gonna make us work faster or this is going to make something but did it really? And like how on what scale and like what evaluations are we basing that on?
You advise people to ask what sucks or what do you want to offload? Why is that such a powerful framing?
Yeah. It's powerful framing because I think it steps away from always using problem as like, what's the problem? It's like, what are the things that just suck? Or what are the things that you would love to like take off your plate? And
Yeah.
because those are the areas in which, like we were talking about earlier, allow people to free up people to do other things, whether it be focusing more on strategy or more high level creative work, or actually being able to have more personal time for themselves or for their families and friends. So asking that question, I think really gets to the heart of people's the pain points or the things, the slugs that they feel every day or like when they do their work. What are the things that they could, if they could like offload, they would, and following that trail of like, well, tell me more about that. What what about that is makes you want to take that off your plate? And so there's a lot that comes from that answer that I think is very helpful in building product and also getting to know clients.
For business leaders who are listening to this, who's a good fit for Carlene? Who should reach out to you?
Yeah. So if you are an early stage startup, I'm looking for some support around and partnership around understanding how AI can help in the product development lifecycle. Also, SMBs that are looking to implement AI into their workflows and finding out those things that, might suck or the things you want to offload, feel free to reach out to me. And also, thinking about, again, how we get teams ready for AI and the mindsets and processes and culture and things around that. And so, yeah, startups, SMBs who are looking to use AI to help them be more productive and creative, and then also looking to learn more about AI product development.
Amazing. Carlene, thank you for coming on Just Curious.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Stu.